Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hive Summit. I am your host, Michael Matera, and this is my session, and I am really excited and honored to bring it to you. But mostly, I just want to say thank you for being part of the Hive Summit. It means the world to me that so many educators from around the world are dedicated to producing positive and impactful change in their classrooms as well as their communities. So thank you for that. This session is going to be a little different, right? One, there isn't somebody interviewing me. I decided to go with a different style for those of you that have seen the Hive Summits in the past. My daughter always interviewed me, and I loved that. But I thought this year I would do it a little differently because I've asked all the speakers not to have their entire presentation centered around COVID. And that was an intentional choice because I want some of this to remain timeless. I want us to realize and recognize the fact that the things that we talk about here, these are so powerful, so impactful that really they're timeless. We're talking about building relationships. We're talking about making meaningful connections with our students using really dynamic and interesting pedagogical choices in our classrooms. That's going to be good this year. That's going to be good next year. That's going to be good 10 years from now. So with that said, I decided I'd be the session that sort of addresses the COVID sort of piece, and we would talk about things that we could do in our classrooms this year for us that are going back, as well as for those that are going back virtually, asynchronously, synchronously. I'd give you guys some really good tips and tricks, some of the things I learned from teaching this year in that kind of environment. So without further ado, let's get started. When I first found out that we were going to be digitally teaching, this was quite a shock to me, and I did what all teachers did, is I started to research, right? So I typed in online learning tools and lessons and resources, and boom, instantly I was overwhelmed. Trying to sift through and figure out what are the tools we should be using now was daunting and kind of never ending. This is both a blessing and a curse, right? We have so many tools at our fingertips, but which are the right ones to use for us? What is the right ones to use for what we're trying to accomplish in our classrooms? And of course, what is the right one to use for our students? These are all powerful questions that we should be asking anytime we add something into our lessons and our designs and everything. But wow, like we were a little bit in triage mode at the end of last year because we had to do this, like overnight become sort of an ed tech teacher, and we weren't really ready for that. And I think I was so proud of the response from the community that I teach in, and I know across the nation, so many teachers jumped on board with doing whatever they could to connect and continue the powerful connections they had in their classrooms online, asynchronously, synchronously, whatever. They really tried to meet the needs of their students. Fantastic. But now we have the benefit, guys, of being able to sort of think through this here in the summer, think through what we want to add for next year, knowing full well, even if you guys are going back into the classroom, there is a strong possibility we might have rolling closures that where we're going to start and then we're going to have to go back online and then we're going to come back. So we have to this year design with flexibility in mind. And I think a lot of the tools we have in this session are going to address just that. So one of the first ones I really want to talk about is this idea of building relationships. When you do teaching normal, pre-COVID, right? I still always say relationships are king. We need to make sure we're establishing authentic and meaningful connections with our students, both in terms of our content in our classrooms, as well as out of the classroom. Like, get to know your students so that you understand what they like and dislike. Try to infuse some of those things into your classroom. Okay, that's great. Pre-COVID. Now the question, the head scratcher for us this year or at the end of last year was, how do we do that in an online environment? How do you really build and maintain positive and powerful relationships online? Now, I gotta tell you, this is so important. I hope none of you are skipping over this portion of the video, because I gotta tell you, if you don't have a good layered foundation of relationship, all the other little tips and tricks don't really matter, right? We need to make sure we're meeting the needs of our students kind of in here before we can really get to here. So with that said, What are ways you could build relationships in your classroom? Well, I use quite a bit of different tools to do that. Some of the ones I really liked, coming from me, it's so important that we hit that whole child, the social emotional learning side, as well as sort of our content standards and whatnot. So with that said, what do you do to sort of foster those social emotional learning skills? Well, students need to be heard. Like I'm a middle school teacher, and middle school kids love to sort of come in, tell their story, connect. Not all of them, but you have to give time and space for those kind of kids. So I would strongly recommend, if you're doing sort of a Zoom meeting, a Google Meet, whatever with your students, come to class early. Allow a little just like pre-class banter, right? Ask them how their weekend's been. Let them talk. Don't always sort of feel like you have to sort of respond with what you did all the time. Ask them questions. Probe them about what was happening in their lives. That's such a great, easy step for sure. Another thing you guys can do is be a little silly. Play a game with them. I absolutely love playing the game Codenames with my students. This is a great game that they have just made on a free online implementation. You go to codenames.game, hit create room, type in your nickname, hit English. Then you can invite other players by sending them this link. So put this into your Zoom meetings chat, your Google Meets chat, put it on a website, email it, however you want to pass it along. And then I choose English, I choose Codenames, start new game, and boom, for any of you that have played Codenames, this is all set up and ready to go, done distance learning wise. Somebody joins as the spy master, other people join as operatives, and you guys can play the game, have plenty of belly laughs. It is fantastic. So if I join as spy master, see now I'm seeing this, but the other people on their end are not. It is a great implementation of this game. Okay, the next game is so fantastic and really easy, just like Codenames was to adapt to a Google Meet or a Zoom meeting, and that is Bring Your Own Book. This is a fantastic game. This is a game that I totally used in my classroom when we would have sort of silent reading time, and students loved it. It was just something I would do at the end for just a few minutes. And then I thought, why not bring that online? So this coming year, for sure, I'm going to be rolling this out with my students. You have the Google Meet, you have them bring sort of an outside reading book and see what they can pull out in just a few seconds to match those cards. It's so fun. There's a bunch of different ways you could do it in terms of having students vote for which one's the best. You could just kind of be the judge, kind of apples to apples style. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but it is so much fun, and again, produces lots of belly laughs. Once again, the game is Bring Your Own Book. Check it out. The next thing that I think we can really start to look at in terms of building relationships is actually asking the students what their needs are and how well you are at meeting those needs. I'm talking about asking some sort of survey questions. Don't overly complicate it. Don't make it a huge survey that takes 45 minutes to fill out. In fact, don't even make it something that takes 5 minutes to fill out. Ask for targeted feedback constantly, as opposed to having one big survey day kind of at the end of the quarter. Really show them that you're constantly trying to micro-tune the class to just their frequency, because when you guys are in sync like that, it is incredible what can get done. And this is a tip that I have for you if you're in person or if you're online or asynchronous learning. Ask them these questions. I did it after every single one of my online lessons. How did this go, guys? How is this going for you? Sometimes if I had done a lesson before, like that type of lesson before, maybe I don't ask about that lesson. Maybe I ask about the homework. Maybe I ask for the tasks that I'm assigning. What are they liking? What aren't they liking? Have it be a mix of private as well as public responses. Sometimes ask it just at the end of your Zoom meeting. Sometimes put it in a Google Sheet that you can kind of have them fill out on a Google form and populate it. Super easy for you to take a look at. But the key element to any sort of survey is that it is making a difference, that they need to see that you are taking that feedback and you are making some choices based on that feedback and trying different things. You are fine-tuning your course, and if you do that, I guarantee this is that piece that I think just really shows students that you are all in for them, that it is not your class, it is our class, that you care about them so much. Like, that is your job, is to help them. And before we can even get to any of the content, we have to make sure that they're okay. So again, hitting these SEL skills are important. One of the things that I think you can also take a look at is you could use a tool like Pear Deck. Pear Deck is another one of these things where you kind of have students answer questions in a graphical format, and they have developed some SEL slides that you can use where it asks students how they're feeling, and they can kind of just slide one way or the other. This is cool, super simple, but it doesn't always have to be that way. Like I said, it can be the simple surveys as well. So if you really want to start that year right, get started with surveying students soon, often, all the time. Make them different types of questions, and I guarantee you're going to see a different type of response, and you're going to see a different type of buy-in in your class. So hopefully, building relationships, we got that set, and we are ready to go. The next thing I really want to talk about is building engagement, right? This is something that's so near and dear to my heart. I wrote an entire book about how we can kind of optimize our course design to sort of engage, enrich, and elevate our learners. So this, like I said, is huge for me, and it is important whether we're in class or whether we're online or asynchronous. But what we have to do is reimagine a little bit how we do school. And I think that's true, again, in all sort of aspects, whether it's online or in person. So when I got hit with this idea that we have to be online because of our current circumstances, it was a little bit of a head scratcher, because most of my engagement strategies that I use in the classroom are about collaboration, being together, building things with Legos or these blocks, and doing these kind of fun little group challenges. But we're going to find ourselves in a time this year where we can't necessarily be using shared resources like Legos and blocks, and we're going to find ourselves in moments where we're outside of school. So what can we do to increase that engagement? And what I found this past year, when I really sort of dove in on it, is there's so many great tools we can use to sort of enhance that engagement. But it comes down to us choosing properly and then designing around that choice really well, and not just always taking that off the shelf product. A lot of times it's about you remixing or you doing something over and above the example. One that I used a lot for trying to make an engaging online lesson. Now, my school taught synchronously, so we were together in a Google Meet. And how can I get them to sort of spice up a lecture, if you will, so that they can be moving through some content together, but have it feel a little more personalized, a little more interactive? Well, in comes Nearpod. We begin by clicking Lesson in Google Slides for me, and it'll take us to Google Slides. And when we get there, it couldn't be simpler. You just go up to add-ons and click the Nearpod. And up on the side will come all the various features we can use. And as you can see, there are a boatload of them. I'm just going to walk us through one or two here today. The one we're going to talk about is making a little field trip, because we're sort of stuck inside, right? We're stuck in our worlds here. So click Add Field Trip. This produces a little VR experience. And let's say you are an English teacher, and we're going to do the Globe Theater because we're introducing our Shakespeare unit. And you can click the Globe Theater here, hit Done. You could have hit Preview. And what this does now is add a slide. When the students are viewing the slide, they're going to get to be able to move around in the Globe Theater. And I am done. That slide is finished, people. Now let's say you wanted to see what it looks like. Again, I can hit Edit. And if you want, you can hit that preview. And this is giving you a really small window. If they have the VR glasses, they could use those. This is giving you a really small view. There would be full screen when the presentation is in motion, and they're going to be the one that's in control to be able to look around. Great activity to ask them for what they notice, what they think, right? They're really good to process that way. Nearpod was a fantastic tool to use in my class. You can really see how it was simple to build out, and it really sort of changed that relationship in the class. I absolutely loved it. There are several tools that we didn't even get to. You could see there's just so many you could use with Nearpod. It's super slick, so I hope you definitely use that in your class next year. And again, that's something we can use in our classrooms. When they can't necessarily touch the same blocks, we could have them all working on Nearpod in the same classroom or at home. So definitely check that one out. The next thing that I really wanted to share with you in terms of building engagement, one of the lessons that worked so awesome during my synchronized class was a scavenger hunt. So the scavenger hunt worked pretty easily. I just had a presentation that I built out, and in fact, I'll even share a sample presentation on the teacher's page here, or on my presenter page. So definitely grab a copy yourself. And then all you did was present that, and then here's the magic. Here's what I did. I absolutely loved it. I gave kids, this was silly. This was stuff not attached to content. So they had to find a spatula, they had to find, you know, an alarm clock, toothpaste, whatnot. You get the idea. And so up it would come, boom, toothpaste. And they would rocket away from their computers, running all over the house, getting the toothpaste, coming back down. And the rules were, I would sort of count out loud when I was counting down out loud. So I'd give them just some amount of time in my head, whatever. But then eventually I would just start counting down like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the rule was that after 1, what I was doing is I was taking a screenshot, and they had to be in frame with the product. And here was another extra moment where we could build a relationship with each other. I said they got a point for having the object, but then they got an additional point if they took what I called a good screenie. So instead of a selfie, they tried to be a little funny with their product, right? And you can see some of the students doing this here. It was so fun to see them try to be just silly and enjoy the moment and get up out of their seats. You know, they've been at their desks for like a big chunk of the day. So to get up and run around and try to find things was so much fun. Super simple and super clean, super easy. I ended up putting them in teams. I just made teams be the rows, so I could just see in the Zoom meeting that, like, boom, these 5 people are a team, and I can just check off they got it. This 5 didn't, this 5 did. You know, 3 of them did on this one, and just add to their score. And I would just add it on a piece of paper, and I would just say, hey, you know, the green team's at 3 points and the blue team's at 6 points. It was so much fun. And then there was a little razzing, and they dug it so much. So definitely think about adding something like that to your class. Another thing that just worked really well, that was sort of a way to sort of flip the normal class. And I think that that's something we have to think about doing when we're talking about engagement. You're talking about doing something different, something that's not expected, right? It's a surprise. So when we think about unwrapping that present and making it a surprise for them, and like what's going to come out of that is something they didn't really expect. And one that I didn't expect at all, that when I did that Google search that came up, that I was like, what is this all about, was whiteboard.fi. Check it out. It was so awesome. Whiteboard.fi is a free whiteboard platform in which all students get their own whiteboard on their screen. You as the teacher can push out what you want onto their screens, or they could just use a blank one. Here, the students were challenged to draw, sort of Pictionary style, a concept, an idea that I gave them for the round, a vocab term, a person, a place. It was so cool to see them in 30, 45 seconds see what they could draw and see if they could kind of meet the concept as best they could. So that's whiteboard.fi. It was so fantastic to see the students get in there, be on teams like I've done in the past, and see them sort of drawing together. I could see all of them at the same time. It was so much fun, and I could kind of upvote and say like, oh, yours is fantastic. Green team's up a point. Thanks, Sarah, for that. Jimmy, you did a great job. It was so much fun for them. And I got to tell you, when I surveyed them, this was one of those lessons where we were addressing content, we were having a good time, there was lots of belly laughs, and we were learning. And it was kind of eye-opening for me too, that shift of an assessment in a different way. And we're going to talk about assessment in a little bit, but here I was getting all the needed skills I wanted out of my students, because in order to play with content, you really need to understand the content. And it was super present in this activity, so I hope you give it a try. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about in terms of engagement here, and I'm going to make it quick, is gamification. For those of you that don't know about gamification, it is sort of taking the most motivational aspects of games, whether they're card games, video games, whatever, sports. What are those most motivational aspects of them? What are the interesting mechanics that are at play? And can we tease those out and then apply them to our lesson, unit, or course design? And the answer is an overwhelming yes. So it has been some of the most exciting teaching I've ever done. It has produced some of the best results in students, producing kids that understand both the content as well as the life skills. I cannot begin to describe to you just how impactful gamification and some of the mechanics inside it have been for my course design and my students as well. So I hope, throughout this conference, you get a chance and an opportunity to connect with some of my other work. Check it out. There are so many fun things you can add to your classroom right away, and you can go tiny with gamification, and you can go super big and make a huge involved sort of like kids are inside your game world if you want. But it can also be just a quick hit of little activities, little features, little things, little styles that you do with your lesson that just pull out that engagement, up their sort of content knowledge, because there's this reason to use it, this reason to move forward. It is beautiful. So definitely check that out. I would be honored if you did. Now, the next sort of topic that I really want to hit is collaboration, because when we shifted to online because of COVID, one of the things we sort of lost was that easy table moment where we're all together and working together on that table. And it didn't have to be that way. Like when we switched to online, that was the thing I was super freaked out about, because my classroom has always just had tables in it. I have not had desks. And so this thought of now we're online, like how do I get like a table to sort of talk to each other? We were using Google Meet, which couldn't do like rooms like Zoom can. So nonetheless, this was a hurdle to overcome. But I'm so excited to tell you about some of the powerful tools that are out there that are free to use. And one of my favorite ones, absolute favorite ones that really stressed collaboration was Jamboard. It is a collaborative page layout software that Google created, and you can make up to 20 slides. And what I did was I only made 4 or 5 for my 4 or 5 groups. You can see the group color in the corner, and then they each met in a Google Meet and had a link to this, and then they worked on their slide together, trying to answer and sum up last night's reading together. And it was so fantastic to see them sort of move these things together, collaborate, and discuss. Jamboard was wonderful. How cool is that? Like seeing them all move at the same time and truly collaborate. And when I had them in these sort of separate rooms that I did with Google Meet, kind of in a weird sort of way, just creating multiple rooms myself and giving them the link to the students, they were able to discuss and collaborate together. And it was like they were at their table. And again, going back to the survey, this was through the roof, because we're talking about now peer-to-peer relationships. We can't let them lose out on the peer-to-peer relationships, and we don't have to, even if we're online. So check out Jamboard. It is fantastic. If you haven't, it's another Google product. So keep in mind using that. The next one I definitely want to talk about is quizzes. Quizzes, I'm sure you're all used to. It is just a nice tool to sort of see where students are at in your class, kind of for that rote memorization stuff, the fill in the blank kind of stuff, the multiple choice kind of stuff. And super quick to build. You can make a quiz really fast. You can borrow from other people's quizzes and sort of grab and get to make your own quiz. It's a phenomenal tool. But what I want to do is I want to tell you a story about how I used quizzes to be collaborative, as well as hit sort of that relationship and for sure make it an engaging experience. Quizzes has a feature, a team mode, where automatically when logging in, students sort of go to various teams, and they're sort of funny names, like T-Rex, like T-E-A. It's kind of cute, right? There's lots of different ones, and they automatically get aggregated into these teams. You can set how many teams you want to have, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Here's my tip. Before you begin, take a screenshot of those teams, because once you start playing, you don't really see who's on the teams. You just see the teams. You'll get that data in the end. So if you want to use this quiz for some sort of like assessment, you can. But what I like to do is I like to use this for that collaborative spirit, because at the top there's a bar that says what's the accuracy percentage for this class period. And I like to encourage them a little bit, like, hey guys, today's goal, we're trying to get to 85%, and if we get to 90%, maybe this thing happens. Especially if you have a gamified class, you can start to unlock powers or get item cards or defeat a boss if we get to 90 or whatever, right? So, but as this is going, what I'm doing is narrating over it, right? I'm doing almost like a radio announcer kind of thing where like, oh, the T-Rexes pull ahead. And I need to know who's on the T-Rex because that's going to help my commentary, right? I can say, nice job, Riley. That is fantastic. Your team is doing excellent. Keep it up, Nikhil. I love it, right? These are things you can drop in super easy because you have that data as you try to narrate that experience. And students absolutely love this. Having those sort of benchmark goals with it being sort of on team so you don't have the like feel where it's all on your own, like you're working together to sort of score the most you can. I didn't necessarily use it as like scored assessments per se. So in some respects, I didn't mind. One of the features you can turn on in there is that they're allowed to retry questions will come back that they got wrong, and if they get them right, the accuracy will kind of go up, and that was fine with me because it's about the learning. It's okay to sort of shift how that gets done. But I was so impressed with students and sort of their excitement around this activity. So definitely think about giving quizzes a chance here. My third example of collaboration online was I used classroomtools.com. They have all sorts of tools from spinners and all sorts of things you could do that would fit perfectly into this session. But the one that I want to highlight is this sort of 3D room that they have. And it makes this sort of gallery view where you kind of feel like you're looking at paintings. And for this, it was so much fun to sort of give them this assignment to make a museum together as a class. So kids had to think through like, what would be in this room? And they made multiple rooms, and they just used one of the paintings to be a "you are here" in the museum, and then down below there were links to the other museum page, to the next museum page. So you really felt like you were walking through a museum room by room. Kids got to sort of self-decide like what should be in each room. I didn't assign that. What artifacts should be, what should be the theme of this room versus the theme of that room. Highly collaborative. I gave them some class time to sort of discuss together what they want in there. It was so much fun, and I was so proud of what they produced. But this tool itself wasn't really built to be collaborative. It's nothing like Google Docs. So really it required a layer of organization outside of Google Docs, outside of classroom tools, like something like Google Docs, so kids could have all the information here, and then it was about just sort of putting it together into this rather rudimentary sort of system that isn't really meant to be collaborative, but they pulled it off. And this is something that I thought also kind of hit some real world skills that they had to work together and sort of make this system work, and it worked beautifully through the collaboration. So giving students that moment is epic. So make sure you do give them that, because this is something that we're missing sometimes on that online class, is that collaborative nature. If all you have them do is sort of fill things in, even Flipgrid, I absolutely love Flipgrid, right? I have Flipgrid fever like everyone else, but I have to say Flipgrid can also be separate, right? Everybody just sort of making their post, hoping somebody's looking at their post, right? It's a little like the social media culture, right? That I put something out. It was a great video. I hope somebody's checking it. Here, this is them truly working together to make one body, one product, and it was so cool to see. So give that a try, or at least give that style a try. The last thing that I want to talk about in my session here with you guys is assessment. Assessment's huge, and assessment's something that carries with it a lot of anxiety for your strong students as well as your struggling students. It can be paralyzing, right? You have these strong students who want to continue to sort of score well. They're kind of grade grubbing, and they want to make sure they just sort of get everything. They're type A, whatever you want, whatever term you want to give this group. And then you have the other end, which kind of feels like school's left them behind. We didn't meet their needs along the way, and now we're going to assess where you're at. And they know where they're at, and they don't want to necessarily prove that they're there. So what can we do to sort of switch the storyline on assessment? Well, I gotta tell you, I absolutely love talking assessment. When I'm talking the normal class, I bust out those Legos. I do some different things. I'd love to have a chat with you guys about blowing up assessment a little bit in our classrooms. But I had again, a little bit of a head scratcher when it came to doing assessment differently online. It was like, ooh, the tools out there really center around multiple choice. They center around just a bunch of those kind of regular tests, true, false, fill in the blank. So how am I going to do assessment differently? In comes one of my favorite little gamified tools. That's story cubes. Story cubes with these 9 little dice, easy to use. You could buy one box for your online class, roll them, take a little photograph with your phone, and all of a sudden put that up in your online class. Or if you're doing it asynchronously, put it up on your website. This is the roll for today. Maybe put 3 or 4 rolls and assign them by group. Like group 1, you have this roll of 9 dice. These dice, maybe I probably skipped. See, I'm so excited. These 9 dice have 6 different pictures on all the dice. So I think it's over like 1 million combinations of images. They're not paired to your content. So here I am, a world history teacher. It's not built for world history. And I roll it, and what I take that photograph, and I have students have to write short responses using 1, 2 vocab terms per graphic. And I typically say they only have to do 7 of the 9 to give them a little like leeway. And it is so fascinating to see what the students sort of come up with content-wise. And again, it goes back to that concept. To be able to play with content, you really have to know your content. And I was so pleased with this. It was another fun activity that you can add simply, and it's a different style of assessment, but you're getting that content, you're getting to see what your students know, and it's one of those where they're shooting for unique. This isn't something you can Google, right? So I don't have to worry about, are they cheating on the test? They really have to produce unique content here, and it's fun and it's engaging. So definitely check out Story Cubes. Another piece that I want to share for doing assessment a little differently here is try a software called Twine. It is a free software. So check out Twine. This tool lets you for free create these stories, these choose your own adventure stories. And you can see here, it is good for Windows, Mac, Linux, and you can even use it online. So no one has to worry if it will work for them. It is 100% free. You can ask questions of the community of how to build something out. There's a little easy cookbook. It's like a recipe book of ways you'd have to sort of code this, but it's not hard coding. It's just a few put a bracket and then say bold and then end bracket. That's it. So very light coding, and which isn't a bad thing. Isn't a bad thing for kids to learn, of course. And you can see tons of great community here, and it's so cool that you can kind of build out these story things where you'd get a choice of, you'd read this paragraph and it's kind of like, do you want to go to the castle or do you want to go to the forest? And then once you click forest, you're kind of on that decision tree path, and they can kind of relink back up. It is a really neat interactive sort of software that's free, and one that I think we should give a try in our classrooms. Isn't that cool? I mean, make your own, choose your own adventure. I don't know your age out there, but choose your own adventure books were pretty popular when I was a kid, and I absolutely love this idea of having our students write them. And this could also couple with that collaborative nature. You could have kids work on this together in Google Docs and then just sort of copy and paste it into Twine. Have other kids try their adventure books, if you will. Could be based on their content. You could be an English teacher, take one of the characters out. You could have a revisionist history for history class. You could make a story about molecules for your science class. You get it. It's so much fun that you could create, and it's all text-based. It's kind of cool. It's free, and it's different. And again, the number of skills that you'd have to use around building a successful Twine activity is off the charts. It's different. They're not expecting it. You're allowing them to unwrap that educational present. So try it. Give it a whirl, guys. The next thing that I want to talk about assessment is doing boss battles online or doing a gamified activity online. I used simply Google Slides, in which you guys can use. You can find it on my speakers page here. This is a boss battle style assessment in which students are going to answer questions to sort of complete the adventure. You guys can have them answer it verbally in a Google Meet or in a classroom when you're just projecting this, or you can use like a Google form to sort of collect their answers. You guys definitely, this is a fully editable template. Change the pictures, change the storyline, but here's what I did. We were in Rome trying to like battle Carthage was my storyline. Here we are in Rome packing up, we're getting some food. Food was gonna let them answer out of turn because I was doing the whole group answer sort of thing where I could call on anyone, you know, like it wasn't a private sort of quiz. So, but I tried to make it so I didn't call on the same kid again and again. Food allowed people that have previously answered to answer. So they're going to want to get some right answers to collect food. And I was just jotting down on a piece of paper how many food units they were able to get. Then we had to go to the port and load up our food and weapons. Weapons are going to protect us from some wrong answers as we move forward. Here we get to the landing. The land, we had to answer questions within 10 seconds because this was, we were getting our formation and we were landing. Here's the key part to this sort of style setup here. We have this right here is the key. This is what I want you to look at that makes this kind of a little choose your own adventure. If they were successful at the landing, deemed based on what I sort of decided in my head, they can hit, I will hit the go forward arrow and we'd have a better chance in the battle. If we weren't successful, I'd hit back, and what it would do is take us to a battle screen, which is going to be more difficult. Here's the final battle, and in this one, things are going to be crazy. Be ready to answer a question at any time. I might call out a turn, and we have to get 8 in a row. This is the easier form of the battle because they were successful. If I would have clicked the back arrow, it would have taken us to the unprepared, where they have to answer 12 in a row. And if they were successful, we'd get to this sort of victory spot by clicking the forward arrow on that screen. Really, this was just a bunch of questions I was asking my kids, but we sort of themed out the experience, made it feel a little bit like a video game. It was so simple to create. It's actually just sort of a shell that you can use and use again and again, change some of those background pictures, and you can see how you can quickly and easily design your own unique game and experience with this boss battle mentality. And it is so fun to sort of put out there, and you can do this synchronously. You could do this in the classroom. And you could even do it asynchronously. Have students submit answers, and what you could do is just upload a picture to your Google Classroom, and only after enough things have come in do you change the picture, right? So it's like asynchronously, as these things are coming in, we're hoping that we're doing enough damage to that boss to get to that sort of next phase of the activity. You could so slow boat that over the course of a week that it could be this really like fun week-long adventure. But you could see how we're capturing the imagination. We're fusing that imagination with the concrete. And when those two come together, you're creating an experience that they will remember, right? That is where we're hitting them, when it's the head and the heart. Like, that's exciting. So the last piece that I have for assessment, guys, is give self-assessment a try. We began this assessment block talking about how the assessments produce a whole lot of anxiety in our students. And students often can self-assess really well. So give them that opportunity to self-assess and then meet with them. One of the things I've absolutely loved about online learning is the ability to meet with my students one-on-one is through the roof. I can just set up a Google Meet with them and we can chat about their work really simply. I can have just a room open and kids sort of come in like office hours. It has been fantastic to work with them like that. But one of the pieces we could add is a true and genuine self-assessment piece that's regular, that's ongoing. So they get better and better at fine-tuning their own frequency to match your needs, right? And when we're both tuning those dials in, and then all of a sudden when our wavelengths hit, it is amazing what growth they have and how you really are doing the good work of an educator. You are supporting their learning, you're supporting their growth, and you're supporting who they are. That is priceless, guys. So I hope from the bottom of my heart that you guys try some of these activities this year. Get jazzed, get excited. I know that it's going to be different. I know that it's going to be challenging for us. But remember, it is also challenging for those students. And also remember, it is those kids' only time in your class. It is their only time in your grade. Just remember that and give them the best year you can. Take care of yourself, everyone. Stay safe. Continue to enjoy the Hive Summit. I really hope we can connect, and I hope to be in your PLN because you are in my PLN. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Remember to check out some of the other things at Hive Summit. There are so many things going on here, and it's truly an honor to be here with all of you. All right, guys, take care.